Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Monday Zen and Zazen class. Today I will talk about Dogen Zenji's Fukan Zengi, the manual for Zazen. Again, before that, let's sit for half an hour. And maybe during the Zazen time you can mute yourself. Sometimes it happens that there's a little noise and then you get spotlighted. That happened last week. So it would probably you don't need your microphone during Zazen. And if you want to ask questions later, you can unmute yourself again. But during Zazen, maybe switch yourself to mute. Okay, so let's start with sitting, and after that, let's talk again.
我们还是先坐禅30分钟，然后今天讲普劝坐禅仪。大家坐禅的时候，刚才老师说要静音啊。
Thank you very much for joining. Let me continue to talk about the Fukan-Zazen-gi. I thought it was possible in the past to share the whole desktop screen, but I think it's not possible anymore, or maybe it wasn't possible in the first place. If I could share the whole screen, then I could share the Chinese and the English together. But probably right now you can see only the English version. Is that right? Last time we finished one of the central parts. Think of not thinking. Not thinking. What kind of thinking is that? Letting thoughts go. Or non-thinking, which in Japanese is hishiryo. This is the essential art of Zazen. And I talked about that, how I interpret it. Let me continue. Zazen is not a meditation technique. It is simply the Dharma gate of joyful ease. It is practicing the realization of the boundless Dharma way. Here the open mystery manifests, and there are no more traps and snares for you to get caught in. Sometimes it's said that Zazen and meditation are different. What's the difference between the two? Well, one difference, maybe it's more superficial, is that during meditation often you keep the eyes closed, while Dogen Zenji says keep the eyes open. And the people that favor closing the eyes, they sometimes say, well, when you meditate, you're supposed to focus inside. While in Zen, we wouldn't make a distinction between the inside and outside. Whatever you see, whatever you hear in this moment, it's all part of the scenery of the self. There's nothing outside there that wouldn't be yourself. So if you want to encounter yourself, there's no need to close the eyes and somehow focus inside. Everything here, everything out there is part of the self. Another difference is that often meditation, you sit in a similar posture like the Zazen, but then you start from there. So first you adjust the posture and then the real work starts. While in Zazen you could say it's the opposite. You adjust the posture and that's it. The work is done. There's no more that you need to do after that. At Dogen's time, so in the early 1300s, there were already different meditation techniques, for example, in esoteric Buddhism and in the so-called Tendai Buddhism. But Dogen Zenji said, well, he was the first who brought the real Dharma in the form of Zazen. So probably also in the eyes of Dogen Zenji, the difference between these other meditation techniques and Zazen is that when people were using other meditation techniques, they were trying to achieve something. For example, getting enlightenment, becoming Buddha, whatever. But when you do that, you're already, how do you say, not in the moment anymore. You practice meditation in order to get somewhere. But Zazen means to stop there. You stop getting somewhere and return to this present moment. You stop trying to become a Buddha and you're just being yourself. So I think that's why Dogen Zenji here says Zazen is not a meditation technique. And about the rest I will talk later, but maybe first Xuan-san can translate. This is the Chinese version of what I just talked about.
老师刚才讲了一句啊，所谓坐禅非习禅，唯是安乐法门也。老师说，就是上一次课我们提到的是非思量，我们聊到了，不要就是连想要想要不想这个想法都要放下。然后今天继续往下，就是说，老师说，其实坐禅它不是冥想。它坐禅不是一个技术，坐禅也不是冥想，嗯，它是，它它就是老师提了几个不一样的地方。首先，第一个就是眼睛，冥想的时候眼睛是闭起来的，嗯，就是你有一个里和外的区别，内和外的区别，而坐禅呢，没有一个内和外的区别，因为你外面的世界其实都是你自己的一部分，都是你的一部分，所以它没有一个内外的分别。你看到的外面的世界也是你的一部分，但是冥想它可能是分内外的。然后第二个就是它的姿势，呃，冥想呢是从你坐下来这个姿势开始，然后你好像进入到另外一个世界，另外一个世界才开启了。而坐禅呢，认为你坐下来其实也只是一个姿势，没有什么另外的世界，它只是一个姿势而已，没有区别。在道元禅师的那个时代，其实也有很多不同的流派，坐禅的不同的流派，不同的老师有不同的解读。而道元禅师他其实是第一个人提出来了，只要你坐下来了，就已经是业了。我们中文把 Dharma 翻译成业嘛，只要你坐下来，其实就是已经解脱了。只要你坐下来，就已经是在修炼了，而不是说你坐下来是为了修炼，坐下来是为了积一个业，或者坐下来是为了一个什么，要为了成佛。道元禅师说，其实没有，我们坐下来没有目的，不是坐下来之后是有目的的，我们坐下来其实是没有目的的，而并不是为了去哪儿。恰恰相反，坐下来，我们坐禅其实是为了停下来，而不是为了去哪儿，是为了停下来。我们不是为了追求变成佛，也不是为了坐下来而能达到开悟的目的，其实就是坐下来成为你自己，坐下来停下来，大概是这个意思。
Thank you. Let me once more share the English screen. The next sentence was, it is simply the Dharma gate of joyful ease. That sounds nice, but I don't know how it's for you. 30 minutes of sitting usually is not so bad, but even these 30 minutes weekly zazen can be kind of boring. And when you sit, for example, Antaji style session for 5 days or so, pretty soon it gets not only boring but painful. Painful. Second day, third day of a session can be very painful, very frustrating. You feel all kinds of things, and most of them have nothing to do with joyful ease. Sometimes it almost feels like hell. So why does Dogen say it's the Dharma gate of joyful ease? Well, one reason is what I just said. You don't have to accomplish anything. You don't have to get anywhere. Just be as you are. And just being as you are sometimes also involves being in pain, being frustrated, being tired, feeling just like giving up. But if in that moment you just allow yourself to be in pain, allow yourself to be frustrated, and not telling yourself, I'm supposed to feel joyful ease now, but rather it's okay to be in pain, then most of the time you can realize actually the pain is not so bad. As long as you don't think, I'm not supposed to be in pain, I'm supposed to feel good, then the pain is really bad. But if you allow yourself to be in pain, or maybe one step further, just allow the pain to be in pain and stop thinking, I'm in pain, I'm not supposed to be in pain, I have to fight myself through the pain. You just allow the pain to be in pain. Then, sometimes even in pain, Zazen can be quite easy. It is practicing the realization of the boundless Dharma way. Realization of the boundless Dharma way. I think he's just talking about, well, the reality of here and now. It sounds kind of mystical what he says, or the translation is maybe kind of mystical. Realization of the boundless Dharma way. Let's look at the original here. Kyujin Bodai no Shusho Nari. So Shusho means practicing and realization. Kyujin, well, means kind of the all-compassing. Bodai is Bodhi, enlightenment. It's practicing and realizing the all-encompassing Bodhi enlightenment. But basically it means to return to the here and now. And maybe Xuanzang, if you like, you can translate to Chinese.
然后老师又补了一句，我觉得英文的那个翻译可能比中文要简单的多，中文这太难了。这个，然后他下一句说的是“唯是安乐法门也”，大概就是说，好像我们前面一句啊，刚才前面一句说坐禅，它其实不是一个技术，也只是让你找到简单的喜悦之门。就是你看，所谓坐禅非习禅，对吧？唯是安乐法门也。究竟善菩提修正也。下面一句，老师说，下面这一句呢，就是让你意识到菩提之路，让你意识到练习和意识到的这条路。你看，我们不知道大家是什么感觉。你看，我们其实30分钟，一般的情况下，你不会有很痛苦的感觉，就是这个时间不是很长。但是安泰寺每年的接心，就是我周日那天直播的时候也跟大家讲了，就是关于安泰寺接心嘛，今天老师也提到了，就接心的时候要5天，每天15个小时，连续5天这样坐禅。第一天可能你觉得没什么，好像没有觉得很难，但是好像越来越难。大部分的时候呢，我们没有什么，大部分的时候你可能没有什么喜欢不喜欢，或者是想要避免痛苦。其实坐禅呢，它没有什么喜欢不喜欢，也不是为了去哪儿，只是让你感受自己，然后让你成为你自己。尽管有的时候你可能会在坐禅当中觉得很累或者很痛苦，但是其实你就让自己让痛苦，让累，让累就累，让痛苦就痛苦的时候，其实痛苦也没有那么痛苦，累也其实也没有那么累。当你要停止痛苦或者是停止累的时候，反而更累更痛苦。所以这个好像那个坐禅，它是不是一个技术，是安乐法门哈？是我们说可以获得简单的这个，好像是让你获得安乐或者简单的喜悦的这个之门，但是好像它又没有那么喜悦，因为你在坐禅的时候其实没有那么痛苦，你在修炼的时候也是有的时候很痛苦哈。但是它为什么说它又是安乐之门呢？就是说你让它痛苦，让累和累的时候，它就变成了那个老师好像是这个，它就变成了安乐之门。所以其实痛苦也没有什么可痛苦的，就是让坐禅反而就没有那么痛苦了。然后老师就是说，其实让你练习就是意识到这个菩提，这菩提是怎么理解的？我待会儿看老师怎么说，就是好像就是大概是这个意思，不要停止和想控制，就是你在坐禅当中这些痛苦，大概是这个意思哈。
Thank you. Do you have any questions today? Anything you would like to ask or share?
大家有问题可以提啊，可以跟老师交流。
Julian is raising his hand. Julian, please.
This passage you're talking about today, is it one that differs in the earlier version of the Fukan Zazengi? Do you know? Is it sorry to put you on the spot.
Let me check. Let me check. I can check that out.
It just always seems interesting to me when Dogen's had second thought.
So that's the Chinese. Not okay, and Zen and Shingi. Well, this is the Chinese version. Well, it's the Japanese reading of the Chinese version, and okay, today we're talking about this korewa. So that's the technique, or that's the art of Zazen. And here he's saying Zazen is the Dharma gate of joy and ease. But then after that, it's quite different from what we had today. And that's Dogen's early version. This is the first one, Zazen being the Dharma gate of joy and ease. This is a little bit different here. What did we have? We had practicing the realization of the boundless Dharma way. That only exists in the late version. If you get the meaning, or kind of if you get to the essence, the meaning of Zazen, then naturally the four elements will be at ease, which is referring to that all physical existence, like our body is composed of, what was it, fire, earth, water, and air.
Five elements is metal as well, isn't there? But
yeah, and that sometimes metal is in there, sometimes wood is in there. But here he's talking about four elements. So anyway, if you get the essence of Zazen, that the components of your body will naturally kind of find peace. Your mind will also be fresh. Your mind will be fresh. Shonen Bumme. Shonen is kind of the seventh component of the Eightfold Path. So you will have right mindfulness and clarity of consciousness. Other stuff that we find here that he obviously didn't use in the last version of the Fukan Zazengi. And what I didn't talk about today, which I want to talk about next in 2 weeks, is kind of the open mystery manifest, is referring to the word Genjo Koan. Kind of, it's a famous chapter of Shobo Genso, kind of. What I translate as open mystery is Koan. Could also say reality. Reality manifests, and there are no more traps and snares, which is basically referring to the concepts that we have in our minds. We are not trapped by the map of reality, but we actually go out into the landscape. So yeah, actually it seems that in this early version of the Fukan Zazengi, at this point, for whatever reason, he's choosing quite something different. And here, that's what we will talk about in 2 weeks. That's what's written usually on the calligraphy. Today I have a different one, but I always had this, the dragon returning to the mountain, the tiger taking a stroll in the mountains. That's something that you find both in the older version of the Fukan Zazengi as well as in the new one here. If you grasp the point, you are like a dragon gaining the water, like a tiger taking the mountains. But here, in the older version, he's more wordy, kind of. He's using several sentences that later he removed for whatever reason.
Yeah, I can see Joe's saying in the chat that's a lot more goal orientated, the earlier version, isn't it? It's like
a big difference in the earlier version is that he's talking about samadhi repeatedly, and that's usually those are quotes from the Chinese version. So talking about achieving the state of samadhi and kind of allowing, that's a metaphor that's often used, that our mind usually is like glass of water and you got kind of dust in there. But then when we meditate, we allow the dust to settle. And that's kind of samadhi. So in the older version, he kind of repeatedly uses these metaphors to kind of promote this special state that we get to when we meditate. And all of us who are meditating regularly, we kind of know that that kind of thing is happening. But probably Dogen then later realized, well, you shouldn't promote it. You shouldn't turn it into a goal because that takes you out of the reality of the now.
Yeah, and I in that sentence, Zazen is not a meditation technique. Your mind tends to fall on the word meditation, but if you take that out and just say Zazen is not a technique, it kind of undercuts the goal orientation, doesn't it? So
yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
And that sentence is also something that you can't find in the Chinese text. So the Chinese text doesn't say that Zazen is not a meditation technique. Maybe I can share that once more here. Sorry. So did we have that in the old text? No, he doesn't say that here. And you don't have it in the Chinese text, which would be here. So the 4 elements being at peace is actually a quote from the old Chinese text. And also this, that your mind will become fresh and you have true mindfulness and a clear mind. Those were all quotes from the old Chinese text. And then later he just skips to saying this, Zazen is not a meditation technique. Ishilyo, korewa Zazen. Iwa yuru Zazen wa shuzen ni wa arazu. That's the Japanese for that. And that's something that you only find in the later version of this text. So what this means literally is that sitting Zen doesn't mean to learn Zen. So it's not learning Zen. We are not learning Zen, we are sitting Zen. Anything else that you would like to ask or share? Genjoi-san or Genjo-san, I don't really know how to pronounce this plus Y.
Thank you. Dogen explained that Fukan Zazen is universal invitation for Zazen.
Yes.
And he explains how he sees or his experience, I assume, here verbally. Articulate Zazen, how it is, he tried to explain to us. But I know not few people who are sitting in Zazen years long and still say, I don't understand Zazen. And they have read Fukan Zazen or other things a lot as well. And it sounds like they are not convinced about Zazen. And even though they're sitting, it's okay to have a study group and analyzing Zazen, reading text and try to understand it. It's important as well, but could be because that question happens because even though you sit, you don't feel like a tiger, or you don't feel like completely yourself, or you can't find yourself or something. But I can't. When somebody asks me, I don't understand the Zen. I can't understand the Zen. I can't say anything anymore.
Mm-mm.
You have read, you've learned, and you've read what Dogen said, but still, what do you mean? Do you want to be convinced? I ask back, but if you ask such question, not somebody who has just started, just began to sit, but years long, still say, oh, I don't understand it. And it just talk and talk and talk and talk and talk.
Mm-mm.
How would you react? How would you say to those questions? Answer the question or say something to that question? I guess sometimes I get lost.
Mm-mm.
So I would like to ask you. Thank you.
Well, probably that's what Dogen means when he's in the next sentence or the sentence after that. He talks about being caught in the traps and snares. It's this desire to understand. I want to grasp it. Well, that's actually what the trap is, the snare. We try to somehow get a grip on it, but in that moment we do the opposite thing of letting go. I mean, Fukan Zazengi is not a text that helps us to understand Zazen, but it's a text that wants to encourage us to let go of this desire to understand and just do it, to sit. That's why in the beginning also there's this part where he says you can be enlightened, you can have wisdom, can have a great will. If you don't get your head out of there and your body gets into the Zen, you will never reach freedom. So, at one point you have to, well, just stop trying to understand and just sit with body and mind. Give yourself to Zazen, give yourself to the practice. And as long as that doesn't happen, well, being miserable, not understanding what it is, it's also part of the reality. It's also being part of in your element. I mean, if you're in pain, you're in your element. If you are clueless and have no idea what you're doing, that's your element at that point. The only advice I could give is don't try to grasp it. Don't try to understand it. Just give yourself to Zazen. You cannot make it your own. You cannot make Zazen your own. It's the other way around. Allow yourself to be part of Zazen. Give yourself to the practice. I mean, that's also the meaning why, for example, when you take refuge, taking refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha doesn't mean that you make the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha your own. I took the precepts. You don't take the precepts. We say that in English, but it's strange. You don't take the precepts. You give yourself to the precepts. You give yourself to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. And in the case of Zazen, you don't take Zazen. I'm doing Zazen now. And I try to become a better person. You give yourself to Zazen. And I think that's why what a lot of people don't understand. That's why they use this expression. I took the precepts. I got my raksu. And so on and so on. No, you're supposed to give yourself to the precept. Give yourself to the raksu. Give yourself to the practice of Zazen. And, well, probably you can only repeat it over and over until that change occurs. Oh, Zazen is not something for me, but I'm there for Zazen.
Thank you.
Anything else? Any other questions? Yes, Diane, please.
So in that light of what you're saying, it seems like it's not just the time that you're meditating. It's not just those 30 minutes or however long. But how would you explain how it impacts you during the time that you're not doing Zazen? Because it has to have an impact. It has to have an effect. It's not just for that time. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I sometimes say like Zazen is like the how do you say axis of a wheel, where the center is, and the wheel is the 24 hours of the day. So it's not only about the axis, but the whole wheel needs to be turning. But to have a stable practice of Zazen is like having a stable axis that helps the wheel to turn. But during the rest of the day, the point is just like when you sit, you give yourself to the sitting. When you wash the dishes, you don't turn washing the dishes into your practice. Now I have to be mindful. I have to do it in a perfect way. You give yourself to washing the dishes. When you take the garbage down, you give yourself to taking the garbage down. So the point is that ideally in everything you do, you give yourself to it. You give yourself to what you're doing during the daytime. And having a stable Zazen practice, sitting practice, I think makes that easier. Of course, in theory, you could do it without the sitting. When you get up, you give yourself to washing your face, whatever, preparing breakfast. And in theory, you don't even need the practice of sitting. But I think in practice, it helps a lot to have this kind of, this center of the wheel. And if the center is stable, it helps to implement that during the rest of the day. Bernal, you have a question?
Just a small comment about what you said of Zazen being the center of the wheel. It reminded me a quote from Rumi, the Sufi. So it goes like this. He says that in order to understand the dance, we must be in stillness. And in order to understand stillness, we must dance. So it goes together. So yeah, just reminded me that quote, which I mean he's not Zen, but it sounds quite Zen to me.
Yes, beautiful quote. Anything else that you would like to ask or share?
May I ask what's in your mind during that?
In my mind?
Meditation, yes.
Oh, all kind of things. I mean, I don't try to think of anything specially, and I also don't really focus on anything. I just allow my mind to be here, so I hear the noises, I see the wall in front of me, I feel my body. But then there's also things coming up, what happened today, what happened yesterday. Maybe I remember, tonight I have to do this in order for that to happen tomorrow. So there's a lot of things coming up in my mind, but I try myself not to be carried away by that. So I don't try to somehow create a state of non-thinking, but I also, when thoughts come popping up, I try to not follow them. So I sometimes say it's like a merry-go-round kind of thing in a circus or something. It's turning, your mind is turning, or the thoughts in your mind are turning, but you don't jump into. So it can of course happen that during Zazen you ride with the thoughts. So before you notice, you're not here anymore, you don't feel the breath anymore, you don't feel your body anymore, because your mind is thinking. you're in the yesterday or you're in tomorrow. And when you realize it, that's the kind of fantastic thing about sitting, that usually after 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, you realize, oh, I'm thinking. And when that happens, just return to the body, return to the breath. And that can happen a number of times. So in Japanese, there's this phrase mushin, no mind, or empty mind. But that doesn't mean that your mind is literally empty. Rather, this character for mu, just like in my name, muho, it means to be open in all directions. Your mind is open for all things without attaching to any one thing. Your mind allows all things to happen, even the thoughts. But you don't grasp onto them. So that's what I'm, aiming at when I'm doing Zazen. But most of the time, my mind is not empty. There's usually something on the screen, so to speak.
I think that's natural. Yeah.
Yes. Schwansan raised her hand.
I just wanted to say, wish Schwen's dad luck. He has to have a small surgical procedure. I see he's there. And then also her mom's birthday is today. So I wanted to wish her a happy birthday.
Thank you.
Shongre Kwaila.
Yeah, happy birthday and all the best for the medical operation. Anything else that you would like to ask or share?
If we still have time, I've been something on my mind actually.
Yes.
So it's just about when you talk about the day-to-day activities and giving yourself wholly to them, but which I really like. But it's just something I've noticed is often the examples we give. It's stuff like washing the dishes, taking the rubbish out. It's these very kind of physical activities, but in my experience, so I'm a PhD student, and so a lot of my day-to-day activities involves a lot of sat at a screen reading documents or trying to think of something clever to write. And I find like I don't know how to apply this giving myself wholly to those activities, because they almost by their nature they involve like telling myself stories or grasping onto thoughts and trying to follow them. So it's not really a question, it's just an observation of mine that I find this advice more difficult to apply to those daily activities.
Yeah, it's more difficult, but I think you have no other choice, that when you kind of spend your time with intellectual activities like thinking, you have to give yourself wholly to thinking. And of course, that makes it easier to disconnect with your body. But what do you want to do? I mean, you can also try thinking and at the same time listening to the birds on the other side of the window, but good luck with writing your PhD thesis. I think at one point you have to decide what do you want to do. So if you have to work on that PhD thesis, set aside 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours, whatever hours you need to think about it and write it, and do that 100%, and then take a rest and completely let go of that and just listen to the birds, just watch your breath. But to combine these two and watch your breath while you're writing and working on the PhD thesis doesn't sound like such a good idea to me. I think even when you're thinking, you have to do it 100%. You have to give yourself to that activity. And well, hopefully you don't have to do that from morning to night. The biggest problem is when we do it in a half-assed way. So from morning to night, part of our mind is thinking about the PhD thesis, part of it wants to amuse itself, our body is somewhere else. So when you think, I would say, well, just be absorbed in the thinking. And then when you take a rest from that, completely forget about the PhD thesis.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Anything else that you would like to ask or share? If not, as it's already 9:15 here, I would say let's finish for today. In a week, I will talk about the Sawaki quotes again, and then in 2 weeks, we probably get to the dragon diving into the water and the tiger taking to the mountains. Have a nice week, and thank you for joining. See you again. Thank you.